Hey guys, Gun here. Coming here to talk about Warlord CCG 5th edition or Saga edition, depending how you want to refer to it. Um, I have been playing the game since Nest of Vipers, so glad to see it come back. I myself am not a huge fan of the open format or even Ancients format, which is effectively an open format with a little twist on it. Um, I just, prefer to play in limited formats when I play games. So, standard format and Hearthstone, etc. Um, but yeah, I've been playing the game for that long. During 4E, I was a playtester, and I also helped create uh, the Kestrel the Deceiver, which that's my contribution to the game. Um, I've played in the Chicago playgroups, uh, playing with Uthnak1122, or Ross, if you know him as that, and Kine. Also like Fast Flare and you know other people like Matt, Sam, the two Joshes from the Chicago area, and Top Deck Gang represent all the way. I'm not one of the Guardians, but I do basically know all of them. I assume most of them, if not all of them, know me. Um, but yeah, the other thing is I am a Medusan Lord Slayer. I slayed Dust of Dreams, as well as the other two that come in that pair. We slayed with Matt Cotton and Fast Flare. Uh, Never actually got the Medusans, but I'll leave it there. But what I want to talk to you today is I want to do a tier list, and I think the best way to do that is just to jump right in. So here we go. All right, so to the tier list. This is going to be a general, list. It's kind of more feelings based, but it's objectively correct, and you should treat it as such. And this will definitely be here to make fun of me later, so be ready to make fun of me for that. Um, but this is based on my opinions. We know a limited card pool. At best, I'm going to take the Gen Con 23 ones into account, but realistically, like this could change based off of future cards. I'm just going off of what my opinion is from what we know of them. So to start, we have Edian, the Celestial Messenger. Um, he is probably, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, warlords we've seen revealed. That said, this can change a lot based on the healing spells available and the buff spells available. But you think about what you're going to have access to, should be good. But to go into his stats, he's got the +4/+3 attack. That's not bad for a cleric. It looks like it's going to be holy. 16 AC is pretty solid AC, and 10 skill is solid skill. I don't think Ambassador is going to be really a trait you need to worry about. 3 HP is the standard. That said, his limited order is target 2 of your level 1 or 2 characters. They gain +2 attack and AC and an additional melee strike with a base of +2 when attacking. So something to note with the base of +2, that means you actually get the attack bonus as well. So it's actually a +4 strike. And then the base character is, takes their attack and gets +2 on there. So, first action of the game, you order hit 2 of your level 1s in the front rank, and you make them targets, but you as a cleric should be able to heal them, prevent, do sacrifice, or give them quick shielding for more AC. And when they attack, you have the option of quick strength or other options to do more damage. But you open up with 2 strikes, and that makes up for the tempo loss of the first order, and then if you assume you can get through 2 actions, you get another 2 strikes off of the next character. And something to add to that is there's a new level 1 that's at least in the Gen Con demo decks. We'll see if it makes it live, but it has stealth, so it has an additional way to survive, and has decent stats at base. So that if that card makes it through unscathed, then you have a pretty good starter for this warlord that will be able to be both aggressive and defensive at the same time. So just something to point out. But I think just as a base, just because this is a cleric that'll have access to those other tools to keep the characters alive and maybe ready them again for another attack, I think this is going to be one of the strongest warlords in the format, and that's just my opinion on it. We'll see what comes out coming forward, but look out for this one. So next, going on to Allin Gaunt. So this warlord, I think, is a solid A. It's a good warlord. It's going to have 3 strikes, 5, 3, 1. Those are low numbers, but having 3 is good. Plus, it's on a rogue. 16 AC, solid for a frontliner. 9 skill and 3 hit points, all pretty average, but good for what you need. The big trait is that he's both a monster and an assassin, which are relevant traits to have. So monster, I don't know if we have anything that's necessarily straightforward for it, but there are other characters that can deal additional wounds to monsters, things like that. So it's just something you need to watch out for. That said, there are, like Cult of Baskaran buffs and things like that. So you'll be able to see different monster trait be relevant. And assassin usually means you get some kill power. So things like, assassination or, backstabbing effects. Now, we don't have any of those revealed because there actually weren't really any frontline fighters, or frontline rogues rather, in the set bonus or the base set. So, or the Gen Con sets, I should say. But that said, we'll see what they have. Now, his ability is to react. After he moves, you perform a melee strike. Now, this is unlimited, although it is limited by how many times you can move. I don't know if they're going to have any ways to move within your own rank. So if you're already in the front rank, you can move. Otherwise, you do get it when you move into your front rank, so that's good. Or when you move into your opponent's front rank. There was a card in the Gen Con decks that let you roll a d20. If you roll a 1 or 1 through 9, you would just journey, so that's a move forward. I believe if you rolled from 10 to 19, you could do it. You journey twice, if I recall correctly. That or you gain some other bonus. But then the other one, if you roll a 20, you move into an opposing front rank and you gain stealth till end of turn. So that means you would basically move, if you roll that 20, you move into their rank and you get a plus 20 rate, or a plus 5 melee strike at their second rank just to start. That said, if he gets access to stealth, that should be pretty powerful. I think he'll be a good warlord. Again, I don't think any of these warlords are bad. Just some of them are probably going to be worse. It's just the nature of how formats work. That said, like I said, solid A. Church Enforcer Tankred. He's our first Deverian. He's a human knight fighter. He has got +9, +7, just regular strikes. 15 AC, which is okay. 4 hit points, though, with the 15 AC should be good. And 7 skill, which is all right for a frontliner. That said, he's got the limited order. Targeted character performs a melee strike that inflicts an additional wound on equal or lower level characters, which means, your level 1 character can kill a Brine Fiend. Or, if you want to get real spicy, your Squire Aragon can deal 3 wounds on another level 1. Won't normally be relevant, but it could be. But yeah, something to be aware of. I do think this warlord is another solid A. I think that he'll be good. He'll probably be decent as a frontliner. Probably he's actually going to shine most as a mid-range rusher, bringing level 3s and level 4s up to the front and letting them clear out your opponent's level 3s and 4s, and then, just taking advantage of those different steps. You can also, say you drop a level 5 and stun them to the front, you can use the order on that character and have them do a strike even though they're stunned for 2 wounds on their warlord or whatever it is. So I think, access to 3 strikes and an additional wound plus some synergies in some other formats makes him better than some of the other fighters, but I think he'll be solid and he'll see play in that way. Next, probably one of my favorites from a design standpoint, but it's Commander Restov. I do think he's actually probably an S, but is very much dependent on two factors. So to get into what he does, he's +8/+0, looks like fire for the attack. And then he's got 15 AC, which is okay for if he goes in the front, but he'll likely sit in the second. You'll see it with his ability. 8 skills, pretty good for a fighter. And 3 HP, which is the standard. Now, his abilities, him being a human knight, I don't know if knight means anything, but it might. Your dragons suffer no loyalty penalty, which currently there are no there are no dragons that are faction based. So we'll see if that's relevant. That said, his second ability is limited order, discard a card, put an equal or lower level character into play adjacent to him. Now, the big thing is this means you're going to be able to bring a level 5 or a level 4 in adjacent to him. And that can be pretty huge when you're sitting in rank 2 or rank 1. And, even when you talk about the cost of that, like, you're usually using a card to move that character anyway. So you're not even really paying that big of a cost to basically, like, if I told you there was a card that, you can put a level 5 character in play, ignoring illegal ranks and moving them into, move them, 3 ranks forward, you'd say that's a pretty good card. That's better than Bribe is. It's better than a lot of other cards that do similar. So I think it'll be pretty good. The only caveat, or I guess there's 2 caveats, he's not very good if you get the bricked hand with no characters in it. And if you don't have good level 5 options or other faction dragons, which, we haven't seen any of yet, but we'll see. But I think just the ability alone should let you, for lack of a better term, cheese wins. You drop your level 5 into rank 2, they're ready to go for the next turn no matter what, and assumingly we'll probably have an order to move forward in some way. I think he'll be good. That's one of the better warlords I've seen. So now for him, Dawn Treader. It's a freaking warlord with +8/+4 attack, looking like holy. It's 16 AC, 6 skill, which is lower, and only 3 hit points. So the 3 hit point bit, it might be a lot more relevant than given credit before, but his abilities, he's a human paladin being currently the only one we've seen so far. Your other characters get +2 attack and AC while in the same rank as a level 4 or higher paladin, so that includes himself. And depending on the wording, it might mean that he gets +2 attack and AC to his level 4 paladins that come into play just by default. So those paladins get +2 attack and AC because they're not the warlord. I think his wording just means that the warlord doesn't get it, not the other characters in the rank with them. So it could be that the level 4 does or doesn't, but either way, some synergy there if he has a level 4 or higher paladins. But then his other ability is he banishes a level 1 character into the discard pile. Or you banish a level 1 free kingdoms in your discard pile, and you can make a character journey. So he can journey himself, or he can send up his Huggins or his level 4 paladins that he has. Now, there's kind of some anti-synergy going on here, where if you want him to be a Diet Artec, he can do that and just move forward when he has 2 level 1s, and you just play a bunch of level 1s and 2s and kind of rush. Or, maybe cap out at your level 3 with the Huggins. It's probably his best move. But in those kind of decks, you typically don't want to play a lot of level 1s, so you actually only will really get 3 uses of the order. Now, it's not limited, so you can use it as many times as you want, but just something to point out. But I think he'll be decent. I think he's a solid A, and something you should look forward to. Okay, so the next warlord is going to be Grand Inventor Otto. Grand Inventor Otto is kind of a weird case because we don't actually fully know what he does, but I have a pretty good idea of what I think is going to happen. So to start, he's a dwarf wizard, which is actually, he's the third ever for a dwarf wizard warlord. Um, he is a dwarf artificer. Don't know if artificer is going to matter, but it might. But he's got +4 attack with what looks like lightning, or air, I think is what they typically use for lightning cards. It's got 14 AC, so that's fairly low, but then 12 skill, which is very high. Even most wizards usually only have 10 or 11, but then only 3 hit points. He's got +1 level for equipping items, and a limited order to equip a trap token to each character in your front rank. So I don't think we got confirmation of what traps actually do, but it's likely one of two things. It's likely when the character is targeted by a melee strike, maybe, or a ranged strike, you tap the trap to make them do a DC check and either miss or take a wound. Either of those is good. Now, the question is whether that's the case. It's also possible you might discard the trap after it's used. So just something to be aware of. I think either of those options should be good depending on what that DC check is. I'd say my guess is going to be like a 12 to 15 range. Something similar to Adonis the Kazoner. I don't remember how it's pronounced. But Adonis from the Dev Warlord. But it may have some other benefits to it. We're not sure yet because they haven't really revealed that, but I imagine it'll come up at some point. But yeah, the +1 level for equipping items, I think, is actually more relevant for putting level 8s in your deck than level 9s. Now, level 9s might exist and might be something you do, but typically level 8s are actually like the ones you want, but you want to be able to equip them in rank 2, which is what is going to be really beneficial for him. In general, like I said, I think he's going to be an A warlord because I think he's going to actually use, Grave Consequence, or what is it? Grave Exchange. Probably best of any of the warlords on the list, even though he's not a necromancer or anything like that. Just because he'll be popping dwarves back into play, and dwarves typically are sticky. And what a wizard really likes is to not have to be forced into the front rank. So I think he'll actually be pretty good because of that. But that said, who knows? We have to see some wizard items to really know. So I think though he's going to be an A-level warlord just from the skill and the +1 from equipping items alone. And we'll see from there. The next one is going to be High Acolyte Helen. This one was one of the Gen Con 23 warlords. I think that she's going to be pretty powerful, but to get to her ability is your level 4 characters come into play, and specifically level 4, so it's not a full Sir Bob situation. They come into play as if they're 1 level lower. So, as stated, it's not like Sir Robert where all characters level 4 or higher. So you're not going to be dropping a level 5 in a rank 4. If you want a level 5, you still have to play a normal rank 4 and then the rank 5, which I think makes her significantly worse than she could be. That said, I still think that ability is strong, and it seemed strong when it was played. And you do have the option to put them in either rank, so you're not necessarily hampered, though typically you're going to want that extra rank. But if you're planning to just drop them all the way to the front, whether they come in 4 or 5 or 4 or 3 doesn't really matter. She's a human cantor, which cantor is usually a pretty solid trait. It usually means you get extra buffs from cards that you can use them. And her limited react is after she targets an other Deveranian with an action, or specifically a spell, spend target non-warlord character in your opposing front rank. Right. So what that's going to do is you'll be able to disable, their level 4 or higher, or 4 or lower character in their front rank on the first action of a turn. If you just buff or heal one of your other characters, or you put like the Avatar of the Storm in play. She's currently the only character that can really use that spell. So we'll see if that changes or not. But yeah, she's going to be pretty strong. I didn't mention her stats, but they're pretty vanilla. 5-1 attack, looks like lightning. 15 AC, 9 skill, and 3 hit points. All of those are about as standard as you can get, so nothing flashy there. But yeah, so the big thing is that she's going to be a cantor. She's going to be dropping level 4s in rank 3. Her biggest issue at Gen Con 23, I think, is that her deck was kind of... It needed either some juicier level 4s, or more specifically, get rid of Count Damien. I'm not going to talk about how Count Damien is just Huggins, although I technically just did. But it's worse Huggins. But, in her deck, he's fine because he's coming in rank 3. But you want to have more, hit points, juicier level 4s. If, like, Corinne Drac ever got reprinted, she would be insane in Acolyte Helene's deck. Because you drop in Corinne's in rank 3. She'll probably be pretty good when it comes to, Ancients. But for here, I think she's a solid A. I think she's better than Tankred, but probably middle of the pack overall. That's just my guess. So yeah, moving on to Kak Stonejaw. Kak, I think, well, first off, is the first multi-class of any of the fighters or warlords I've shown so far. But I think he performed pretty well. I think he lost the paladin trait, which people were upset about. I didn't even know he was a paladin, to be fair, because I didn't really play him. I never played against him. That said, I've seen some pretty good results, and he's got his classic dwarf, only 1 attack, but it's a high +8. 16 AC, which is solid, 4 hit points, which is going to be good and useful, and only 6 skill, which is pretty low, but we'll see how much that matters. That said, he has defend and riposte, which are both solid, and he can use the defend feat twice per turn and is considered adjacent to any dwarf character in his ranks while using it, which means he can defend his level 1 character in the front rank, which in Ancients could lead to some funny scenarios where they attack if they make the mistake of attacking with their middle character in the front rank, he can defend that, riposte it, and attack their front rank with the character, kill that character, no prisoners, kill the front 2 characters, and suddenly they're missing ranks because they dared attack with their middle character. Now, obviously, that's a specific scenario, but, it's not unlikely, right? But then his second limited order is perform a melee strike. If the target performed a strike this turn, it deals an additional wound. So he has the potential for 3 strikes, one of which deals an additional wound. So 4 wounds off the bat for if he's going frontline, but he's also a cleric, so it means he's going to have access to things like Holy Might to heal himself, give himself more attack or AC, various different actions like that. I think he'll be pretty solid. He's got a lot of versatility in how he actually plays. Pretty complex warlord. I enjoy him. I'm going to put him a little bit above the assassin because I don't know how good the assassin cards are going to be yet, but I think he'll be pretty solid. I think, the dwarf warlords, I like all of them in their own way. But yeah, moving on to Lord Barrow. This is who I played at Gen Con last year. I think he's a little bit better than Kak, but his ability is he has Scribe +5. He's an elf warlock. Warlock doesn't mean anything necessarily, at least not yet. Once per turn, he can cast a level 1 or 2 wizard spell from the discard pile and banish it. And then anytime he casts a spell, he performs a +0 range strike to go along with it, or he can. It's a react. He's got 9 skill, only 13 AC, which I think is fairly relevant. But if you think about it, his abilities give him the, he can save spells for the next turn. So the big example would be like you had the magic missiles was used in there, or, say you get the, grave exchange, you can save that for next turn when you're actually ready to use it. And, effectively a 6th card a turn because of the ability. Now, I do think he's pretty powerful. I honestly think he'll be outclassed by Tysen, who we'll go over later. But yeah, so this is your typical spell slinger, just throwing spells, dealing damage. He did have a lot of debuffs that he was able to attach in his deck, so we'll see how good that's going to end up being. I just think he really needs more AC or some better defensive spell options. We'll see if that's in the cards. but it's something to look forward to. I think he's a solid warlord. I just, like I said, I think he'll be outclassed in that elf spell slinger slot. Moving on to the next. We have Haven. So this one technically isn't announced yet, but it's a Gen Con warlord. I want to throw him in there just because, there's only, 12 warlords officially announced so far. But Haven is the Free Kingdom's human scout, 6'2" attack, 14 AC, which is fairly low, but we'll get into that. 8 skill and 3 hit points, so all pretty solid for a human scout. Not bad. During the decree phase, your opponent plays with their top card revealed. You gain a bonus equal to your highest opponent's card, highest level of an opponent's card. So if you're playing like Alliance or doubles or whatever, you have multiple. You'll have multiple options. You pick the highest one, obviously, because you want the biggest strikes. So that's relevant because you'll have her other ability is Spend Order. You can look at the top 6 cards of an opponent's deck. You put them back in any order, and then you can perform 2+2 range strikes that get a bonus, obviously equal to the other, or your default bonus. So the big thing is, since this has 6 cards, you actually could deny a card, assuming your opponent doesn't have card draw. So if you look at those cards and it's like, oh, here's that, the lightning bolt that's going to kill me next turn. Yep, you put that as a 6 card. They're not getting the lightning bolt, at least unless they get a draw card. But at the very least, you can control that. Or something else that his deck had, or her deck had, was a level 2 character that let you discard the top card of your opponent's deck. So if you have cards like that, you can maybe put them on the top and say, hey, I want you to not get that next turn, right? So various pieces of that, and obviously, maybe you just see they have that level 8 or 9 item, and you're just like, I want that bonuses for my range strikes, right? And the other thing is, since it's all range strikes, if you equip bows, they had like an item where you could discard the item to get 3 range strikes. They're +0s, but if you have a large bonus, suddenly those are, +7s, and you're just doing massive damage, right? So it's pretty good warlord. Now that said, I think even though she was one of the best there, I do think she's an S tier warlord. She's really good, but I don't think she needs to be nerfed from where she was. I think she just had the best deck to go along with being, a high skill cap warlord. When it came to Gen Con, she was clearly the best at Gen Con. I don't think that was a question. But I do think that, like, overall, her deck just did everything that it needed to do well, which made her just really good. And they'll be relevant when we start talking about some of the other Gen Con warlords who were maybe lower ranked, but I think their deck just didn't help them out. But yeah, pretty good warlord. Look forward to seeing her in the actual format. This next is Memorium. This is the final dwarf of the ones that are revealed so far. So level 5 cleric, dwarf scholar, 9 skill, 7 holy attack, 15 AC and 3 hit points. All of those are fairly standard, nothing crazy. The limited order, you can target a non-stunned dwarf character in the front rank, heal, and ready the target. So heal is just it heals 1 wound. It's not like heal all wounds or anything like that. And readying a target is with no condition outside of just being a limited order is really good. Usually for that kind of thing, you have to spend or do something else. So if dwarves have any good meatballs that they can throw on the front rank and you can unstun and then use the order on, you're going to be swinging with meatballs very quickly. What typically they do, so like, think like Vexdon and things like that, the dwarves typically have. Definitely going to be something you're going to want to take advantage of. That said, I think he's probably the weakest of the dwarves, but I think the dwarves are in a pretty good spot depending where they're at. And, who knows, maybe the meatballs are real good and she's going to be the best at doing classic dwarf things of throwing big multi-hit point things to the front and just, currently the most stall warlord we have up there, but should be pretty good. We'll see where that ends up. Next up, we have Tysen, which Tysen Dianis is the level 5 elf necromancer wizard who has a limited order, target 2 characters in the discard pile, perform a +3 range strike for each character banished. And you get +6/+3 shadow damage, 14 AC, which notably is higher than Lord Barrow, 10 skill, also higher than Lord Barrow, and 3 hit points. So again, the reason I was bringing up Lord Barrow is we kind of know where Lord Barrow is and the type of game plan that he has. So you get a fairly similar game plan with here. Now, Lord Barrow does have the extra card advantage, which could be good. But I think the ability to banish cards from this card, so that directly affects Frame, for example, and the ability to perform 2 range strikes on just an order without worrying about what your cards are is actually going to be pretty strong, I think. Now, obviously, if you fail to kill any of your opponent's characters, and for whatever reason your opponent isn't killing your characters, you might not have characters to target, but I feel like that's going to be rare enough where it's not a huge issue. And the big reason I think that she's better than Frame is just she's a necromancer. Like, that is one of the most powerful traits in the game, traditionally at least. So I could see her being better. I think she's going to be an S tier, likely one of the best warlords in the set. I could be wrong. Maybe necromancers get no juice. It's possible, but I don't see that happening. I don't think it ever has. Recursion's always good. And currently there's not enough ways to banish your opponent's stuff. And I don't see elves not having good recursion. It's just kind of their core character build. So we'll see. All right, Vactus. This is the last officially revealed warlord, but it's pretty straightforward. This is Diet Artec. He's got limited order, move forward 1 rank. He's an orc barbarian. No, barbarian will likely be important. But 6 skill, 4 hit points, which is good. Only 14 AC, but a little bit better than Artec. And 3 strikes, although the highest is only +8, but +8, +6, +6. This is very simple. This is your throw your big warlord up to the front, do some damage. His game plan is likely going to be just that: 6-man, 9-man. Maybe put some more, low, level 1s and 2s into the deck just to charge them forward. But for the most part, you're equipping items and doing actions from Vactus to do damage. He's probably good, although I think he's probably the worst warlord revealed so far. The 4th hit point does help make him better, but he doesn't have the ability to do, at least initially with the cards that currently exist, like multi-wound strikes, and he does need another card to get to the front rank on the first turn, which, albeit, is better than most warlords, but like compared to the war boss who will go, or war chief later, you actually get like a worse order, more limited, and your stats aren't that great. That said, sometimes green just wins, so just something to be aware of. He's a solid warlord. Like I said, I don't think any of these warlords are bad. I just think he's probably the worst one revealed so far, but we'll see. It is what it is. He's also very simple. This is going to be a beginner-friendly warlord. You just hand them a deck with them, they'll figure it out pretty quick, right? So it's a warlord that I think needs to exist, but I do think he'll be outclassed in the end. So going back to some of the Gen Con warlords, we have Warboss Eskal. This is a Bear Orc Tactician. Your fighters who move this turn get power attack +5. Limited order, target your fighter and choose 2. Target moves forward a rank, gets +5 attack, has advantage for the next strike, or performs a melee strike. And he's got +7, +5 attack, 13 AC, which is pretty low. I'll give that. 7 skill and 4 hit points. Now, this is going to play more like an Uthanac does, where it's more about getting level 3s and level 4s into play and moving them forward. Now, he was probably the worst warlord when it came to Gen Con, but I think that was more because of his deck than the actual warlord himself. So the deck had I think between level 1s and level 2s, it had, I want to say, like 12 or 15 level 1 or 2s in the deck, which is just not where this warlord's going to shine. This warlord's going to be where you just pack a bunch of level 3 and 4 meatballs, send them to the front, just like Uthanac used to do. And if you have something like, they had a couple of level 3s and 4s that were good there that were in the deck, but it's just, you had less because you couldn't, you only had 1 copy of the rares. You only had, you had a bunch of weaknesses in the basic deck building that I think will be fixed come, constructed when you actually can customize your deck. That said, the flexibility of his order, like, even if you just imagine somehow you're going 6-man with him instead of Vactus, Like you get to move forward, you get advantage on your strike, and or you can choose to perform an extra melee strike once you're already in the front. You like there's so many different small things that make him like just a bit better than Vactus, even at the frontline stuff. Where I actually think he outclasses Vactus in most cases. That said, obviously, like you don't want to move him in the front. He only has 13 AC. You probably would still use Vactus just because of the slightly better stat lines. But if you're doing a 6-man, but for the most part, you're playing this guy as your cavalry warlord to send level 3s and level 4s up to the front to do multi-wound strikes and out meatball your opponent. So that's why I think he's gonna be better. I still only think he's an A warlord, probably more along here. He's kind of the same boat as Tankred. Tankred also has better stats, which I think is relevant. We'll see how that ends up going though. And actually, now that I think about it, he's probably the worst of A. Like, I think the Nothrogs revealed so far are probably the worst. But we'll see. Finally, the last warlord we got is Zedak the Prey Herder. Zedak is Sutek Monster Shaman, so we'll see if Sutek and Monster come up. I know Sutek does for sure. He's got +5 attack with that is poison, I assume. It's 15 AC, 7 skill, 3 hit points. He is both a rogue and a wizard, which I think is relevant. So your Sutek get +2 to range or to strike rolls against spent characters as melee or ranged, and you get a limited order. Perform a melee strike that may target an additional rank away. If it hits, spend the target. So it's basically Viper Whip on a stick. 5 attack is okay for doing this. Now, where this warlord's going to shine is sitting in rank 2, sending a bunch of Sutek up to the front. Either Sutek are typically 1, 2s, and 3s, so you're probably going to be mostly balanced there. Like we saw the new Croc that'll definitely be in the Sutek decks as your meatball, but you're going to have a lot of smaller characters doing big strikes, punishing them for spending their characters, and maybe forcing spends from various methods, right? It's a pretty solid warlord. I think this is another A. Just middle of the pack, should be good. Definitely thematic and will be fun to play because of that. So that's the main way I see it. The big thing is that he'll be able to do some like kill strikes on like fighters, for example, by just sitting in the second rank and wrecking their day with either by spending them or by killing them by doing a backstab from the second rank, right? If like something like Black Steel Dagger exists, you'll be able to equip that and deal big damage from the second rank while being safe, and then just putting plebs up front. But that said, like I said, probably middle of the pack. I don't see anything that like really stands out for him, but yeah, that's the way I see it. So this is my final tier list. Tell me what you think is right or wrong. That said, I stand by most of this. Obviously we don't know most of the cards in the format, so I'm mostly taking a guess. But I think this is where they'll probably end up. The order is not really completely specific, but I think it's pretty close to what I think it'll be. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, and get ready to laugh at me when this is terrible. Have a good one, guys. Bye.